Decline of rural cottage industries and handicrafts and revolt of 1857. Okay, the decline of Indian rural cottage industries under the British rule. Agriculture stood as a primary occupation of majority Indians since ancient times, but as the agricultural activity is seasonal, a large section of Indians depended for their livelihood on handicrafts or professional work or cottage industries. The cottage industrial products also played an important role in the internal and the external trade. Indian rural agrarian economy was equally supported by income acquired from the cottage industries. The cottage products enjoyed greater demand in the foreign products markets. In Indian printed cotton cloth, wooden toys, jewelry, etc., are known for their excellent finishing and craftsmanship. The Delhi Sultans and the Mughal emperors had established special karkhanas, that is, industries to produce the best quality cloths, chairs, shoes, jewelry, decorative articles for the use of the royal family. Before the advent of the British in India, India is popularly known as the world karkhana. The products of Indian cottage industries enjoyed great demand in the European markets. The people of Paris, London, Damascus are fond of Indian cottage products. The success of the East India Company over the native rulers, the death of Aurangzeb, the rise of the regional states, the entry of the British factory made goods into Indian markets, the conquest of Bengal and Mysore by the East India Company officials, the decline of the Maratha power, etc., all this provided a serious shock to Indian cottage industries and products. Indian markets became home for factory made British goods. The low prices of English products attracted the Indian consumers, because the low price British products. This provided a blow to the Indian local products and crafts. The aggressive, selfish trade policy of British crushed the hopes of Indian workers. The English conquered the Indian trade markets. They forced the artisans and the professionals to produce as per their orders. As the East India Company established its monopolistic rights on the Indian raw materials, Indian cottage industries also faced acute shortage of raw materials. Okay, native handicrafts and cottage industries lost their old status, their freedom, and their importance. According to the 1813 Charter Act passed by the British Parliament, the monopoly of the East India Company to trade in India was abolished. Queen Elizabeth granted right to other English trade organizations to enter into India and establish their trade centers in India. So in 1833, British Parliament had passed another order, and accordingly it exempted all types of customs and taxes on the English goods entering into Indian market. 1833లో పాస్ చేసిన యాక్ట్లో కస్టమ్స్ అండ్ ట్యాక్సెస్ ఆన్ ద ఇంగ్లీష్ గూడ్స్ ఎంటరింగ్ ఇన్ టు ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్ని ఎగ్జామ్ చేశారు. This opened the gates of Indian rural and urban markets to the British goods. These British traders earned high profits by selling their homemade goods in the Indian markets. All kinds of taxes are exempted on the English factory made goods. The British traders and trading companies established their monopoly on rural and urban markets. The policy of British mercantilism and free trade policy also gave a serious setback to the age old Indian barter system. The prices of the food products increased. Indian consumers started purchasing various goods and products according to the price, but not according to their necessity or need. Okay, the British factory made products, due to their cheap rate, enjoyed great demand in the Indian markets. According to eminent historian Ramesh Chandra Dutt, R.C. Dutt, the British wanted to first point, to destroy the Indian cottage industries and the handicrafts by floating the English goods into the Indian markets at a cheap rate. Secondly, They wanted to transform India into a raw material supplying colony to the British, and the British factories received the raw materials like cotton, jute, indigo from India at the lowest cost. They made Indians to use only British made factory goods at the cost of the native workers and craftsmen. This, he says, this gloomy economic situation on the eve of the second half of the 18th century indicated the gloomy setting of the gloomy setting set out on sun of the Indian cottage industries. The growth of railways, road and communication services under the British rule. Professor Irfan Habib said that after the year 1833, the Britishers in India stopped their hunt for the Indian products. They have started a valiant attempt to establish their monopoly on the Indian markets. ఇప్పుడు ఇండియన్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్ పైన కొని అమ్మడం అయిపోయింది. ఇప్పుడు ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్స్ పైన మోనోపోలీకి స్టార్ట్ చేశారు ఆఫ్టర్ 1833. ద రోడ్ అండ్ rail lines constructed by the British in India also helped them to strengthen their trade in India. It became very easy to British to send the English products to the distant and the remote areas in the shortest period. In the year 1880, the total rail lane area in the country was 15,000 miles. It had increased to 25,000 miles, 15,000 to 25,000 miles by the year 1900. 20 yearsలో అంత పెంచారు. The rail lanes are constructed by the British, connecting the port towns like Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. So this facilitated the British traders to reach India with their products at the lowest cost. British traders will reach India with their products at lowest cost. The exporting of Indian raw material to England also became very cheap. The nationalist leaders had expressed their anguish over the exploitation in the following words: the every mile of the railway lane constructed by British in India became a new rail coffin box to the Indian cottage industries. So there is a fact in their feeling. In British India, the rapid spread of the railway services benefited their trade and the government. At the same time, their railway services destroyed the Indian small scale and cottage and village handicrafts. The British factory made and imported goods and cloth easily reached the remote rural villages at the lowest cost of transportation. This led to the destruction of the traditional Swadeshi handicrafts and the village industries. According to an American scholar, D.H. Buchanan, the railway lanes constructed by the British in India succeeded in destroying the self-sufficient nature of the Indian village economy. Self-sufficient nature of the Indian village economy. The railway services gave a crushing blow to the socio-economic structure. The Indian villages lost their self-autonomy, their self-sufficient nature of Indian village economy. They lost their socio-economic structure, and the Indian villages got decayed. Growth of modern industries during the British rule, 1776 నుంచి స్టార్ట్ అయ్యి ఓకే రెగ్యులేటింగ్ యాక్ట్ నుంచి 1940 వరకు గ్రోత్ ఆఫ్ మోడర్న్ ఇండస్ట్రీస్. బిఫోర్ ది అడ్వెంట్ ఆఫ్ ది అండ్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్మెంట్ ఆఫ్ ద బ్రిటిష్ రూల్ ఇన్ ఇండియా, India was primarily an agricultural country. Handicrafts and cottage industries and cattle rearing, etc., were also providing employment to certain sections of the people. But the success of the East India Company between 1776 to 1857 and the British viceroys between 1858 to 1945 against the native rulers in the wars, their success of British East India Company against the native rulers in the wars and through treaties made by the treaties, all these treaties made English the masters of the Indian natural resources and the markets. So British during this period, they pumped huge quality of British English factory made products into the Indian markets. They sold out them here, they sold in India, and they earned great profits. They also took away the rich raw material like cotton, jute, iron and indigo, tobacco, all this to England. This had increased the production in the British factories. This had increased the production in the British factories immensely. Thus, the British economy between 1800 and 1940, British economy became very strong between 1800 to 1940. The success of the British imperialism literally finished the nominal freedom of the colonial public, the Indian villages and towns became centers of the British articles, goods and cloth, etc. This situation generated greatest discontent in the Indian craftsmen, tradesmen lost their Arabian status and employment and respect and income. India was converted into a raw material exporter to England. The table has given us the idea of how the Indian population was employed in various sectors during the period between 1881 and 1911. So in agriculture, వీళ్ళు రాకముందు వీళ్ళు వచ్చిన తర్వాతే. సో అగ్రికల్చర్, ఫారెస్ట్, హెల్త్ అంటే దిస్ ఇస్ ప్రైమరీ యాక్టివిటీలో. ఓకే, 74% ఆఫ్ ద పీపుల్ వేర్ దేర్. సో అలానే కంటిన్యూ అయింది 74%. దెన్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్, సెకండరీ సెక్టర్, మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ ఆఫ్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్, గూడ్స్, ఆర్టికల్స్, మైనింగ్, కన్స్ట్రక్షన్, ట్రేడింగ్లో 16% దెన్ 15 కొంచెం తగ్గింది ఆఫ్టర్ 1900 ఇన్ మైనింగ్. ట్రాన్స్పోర్టేషన్ అండ్ ప్రొఫెషన్స్లో ఫస్ట్ ఇవి రాకముందు, ట్రాన్స్పోర్టేషన్ రాకముందు 8% ఆఫ్ ద పీపుల్ ఉండే ప్రొఫెషన్స్ అండ్ ట్రాన్స్పోర్టేషన్. ఆఫ్టర్ దట్ ఇట్ కెప్ట్ ఇంక్రీజింగ్ టు 10 అండ్ ఆ తర్వాత అగైన్ ఇట్ డిక్రీజ్ టు 9. So the observation from the above table clearly gives us an idea that the professionals and the manufacturing class, okay, percentage has gone down from 18 to 16% between 18 81 to 1911. It also makes it clear that during this period the number of people in this category too has decreased in the manufacturing and the mining sector and drastically increased in the trading class. It is also observed that the percentage of people depending on the agricultural and allied sectors has slowly increased, but the progress of the transportation and the other sectors, and the percentage of the workers had not made a satisfactory progress. By 1911 it has gone down by 1%, that is 10% నుంచి 1911 9% కి వెళ్ళిపోయింది. సో ప్రోగ్రెస్ ఆఫ్ బ్రిటిష్ ఇండస్ట్రీస్ ఇన్ ఇండియా. ద ఈస్ట్ ఇండియా కంపెనీస్ అఫీషియల్స్ యాజ్ పర్ ది డైరెక్షన్ ఆఫ్ ది బ్రిటిష్ పార్లమెంట్ officials on the direction of British Parliament had established a large number of modern industries in various parts of India. They included cotton industries, jute industries, iron and steel, and the coal mines and the rubber, etc. Rubber kuda unde, plantation, tea, coal mines, iron and steel. The growth of these modern industries provided a serious blow to the traditional Indian cottage industries and the handicrafts. Coal mining industries. India had very rich coal and was amongst the most valuable mineral wealth in India. After the establishment of the East India Company's power in India, the success of the Industrial Revolution in England brought a huge demand for the Indian coal. In India, the coal mining had started in the year 1820 at the Raniganj coal fields in Bengal. Coal mining started in 1820 in the Raniganj coal fields in Bengal. Okay, so between the years 1820 and 1854 only 3 coal mines started functioning. In the year 1854 the East India Company officials had started a rail route to the Damoda basin where coal mines were located. అదేంటి, ఇట్ ఈస్ అ దమూదా బేసిన్ అంట దాని పేరు, వేర్ కోల్ మైన్స్ వేర్ లొకేటెడ్. దానికి ఒక రైల్ లింక్ వేశారు. ఓకే, సో ద రైల్ రూట్ గేవ్ అ న్యూ బూన్ టు ద ప్రోగ్రెస్ ఆఫ్ ది కోల్ మైనింగ్ ఇండస్ట్రీ. It gave a boost to the coal mining industry. As a result, by the year 1879, 1854లో వేస్తే ఇంకో 20 yearsకి 80 more coal fields, 80 కాదు 56 more coal fields had come as a result of laying the railway line. So in the near the Raniganj and the surrounding districts, the cheap price of the coal in India gave a new hope to the British to increase their railway transportation. So the below table gives us some interesting facts about the coal mining industry. వాళ్ళు ఎంత coal produce చేశారు every year. Okay, and number of coal mines ఎలా పెరుగుతూ పోయాయి, 68, 82, 96. See every year 20 to 30 coal mines. లాస్ట్కి ఎన్ని కోల్ మైన్స్ 882 ఉన్నది 1993లో. అండ్ హైయెస్ట్ ప్రొడక్షన్ మళ్ళీ తక్కువ ఉన్న ఇక్కడేమో హైయెస్ట్ ప్రొడక్షన్ చేశారు. So the above table clearly states that the coal mining industry was on a continuous progress front except in the year 1914 to 34. The production of the coal 1914 1934 ఎప్పుడైతే ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ సెకండ్ వరల్డ్ వార్ స్టార్ట్ అయిందో ఆ 2 years తప్ప ప్రొడక్షన్ ఆఫ్ ద కోల్ హ్యాడ్ నెవర్ డిక్లైన్. సో ది యావరేజ్ కోల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ from 1890 to 95 period has increased from 24 lakh tons to 42 lakh tons by the year 1896 to 1900. So after the great economic depression of 1920 to 90, 1929 29 to 30 లో గ్రేట్ ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ వచ్చిందంట. సో గ్రేట్ ఎకనామిక్ డిప్రెషన్ ఇట్ ఈస్ అబ్జర్వ్డ్ దేర్ was a little decline in the number of coal mines. The company encouraged the use of the new improved machinery and techniques to increase the coal production. Newly improved machinery and techniques to improve the coal production in the existing mines. It also becomes clear that from the above table during the period of two world wars 1914 1939-45 there was a decline in the coal production. Cotton mills or cotton textile industry. So the first cotton mill in India was established at Calcutta in 1838. 1838లో ఫస్ట్ కాటన్ మిల్ ఇన్ క్యాల్కటా, బాంబే కాదు క్యాల్కటా. సో ఇన్ 1853లో బాంబే a Parsi merchant called as Kovasji Nanaboy Devar అనే అతను he established the second cottage textile industry in the name of Bombay Spinning and Weavers Company Limited. So the below table shows the growth of textile industry between 1875 and 1951 in India. Okay, the number of cotton textile mills started increasing in a speedy way. సో నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ కాటన్ టెక్స్టైల్ మిల్స్ అనేది బాగా ఫాస్ట్గా ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతూ వస్తున్నాయి. ఓకే, నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ స్పెండల్స్ ఆల్సో ఇంక్రీజింగ్, నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ లూమ్స్ ఎన్ని ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేస్తున్నారు. సో ఇవన్నీ యావరేజ్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ వర్కర్స్ ఎంగేజ్డ్ ఇన్ ద టెక్స్టైల్ ఇండస్ట్రీ. So it has been increasing. So then it started increasing in a speedy way after 1860. So the period between 1860 and 1870 has witnessed little progress in the direction due to the high price of cotton due to the outbreak of the American Civil War after 1885. Large number of big size machines were imported from England to give a new direction and speedy production in the cotton textile industry between the years 1851 and 1915 in Bombay. One more than only in Bombay only more than 96 cotton mills were established by rich merchants. 96 cotton mills అంటే 96 cotton mills ఎప్పుడు 1951 నుంచి 1950 వరకు. ఓకే, దెన్ ఎంతమంది వర్కర్స్ ఉన్నారు ఇన్ బాంబే ఓన్లీ 96. In only 96 mills had 1,12,000 workers were engaged. They produced a large quantity of cloth. Nearly 30 lakh spindles and 51,000 looms were actively in Bombay. 30 lakh spindles anta. So the total capital investment in Bombay, capital investment in the Bombay cotton mills during the 1815-1891-19 was 7.66 crores. At Ahmedabad, the first cotton mill was started in the year 1859. ఇందాక మనం చూసిన దాంతో ఇన్ క్యాల్కటాలో అయితే 1838, 1853 బాంబే. ఓకే, ఇన్ అహ్మదాబాద్ ఇట్ వాస్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్డ్ ఇన్ 1859, థర్డ్ వన్. సో బై ద ఇయర్ 1914 50 such cotton mills came in Allahabad. So Ahmedabad, sorry, most of them were under the control of the rich Bamiyas and more than 9,800 spindles. ఇవన్నీ అవసరమే లేదు. Iron and steel industry. So India is known for its rich iron deposits since the ancient times. The native sources and the foreign travel accounts are recorded about the iron deposits and the craftsmanship of traditional blacksmiths in Dalwai. In the present Telangana was famous for best quality. తెలంగాణలో ఉందంటే ఇది ఫర్ బెస్ట్ క్వాలిటీ ఐరన్ వుడ్స్తో బెస్ట్ క్వాలిటీ ఉందంట అక్కడ. సో క్రాఫ్ట్స్మెన్ ఫ్రమ్ ఇండల్వాయ్ ఎక్స్పోర్టెడ్ బెస్ట్ క్వాలిటీ swords to Damascus. Export చేసేవాళ్ళంట craftsmen from Indelwide to Damascus. So during the period of Delhi Sultanate, Mughals and Qutub Shahis and Asaf Jahi rule also, iron industry was dominated by the ironsmiths. They supplied much needed iron tools, instruments to householders and peasants. They provided various types of weapons like swords, shields, daggers, etc. to the military wing. All the glory of Indian ironsmiths has witnessed a setback during the fall of the local powers. So, the advent of the East India Company, their success between 1700 and 1764 in Bengal and against Karnataka Nawabs and Mysore Sultans made them the masters of this area. They started attempts to establish their monopoly on all these iron deposits. The serious attempts to introduce European process iron smelting in India. Okay, European process iron smelting in India started in the early years of the 19th century. Iron smelting of European method in the year 1830 during the tenure of the Lord William Bentinck and Josiah Marshall. 1830 anta. Heath, a retired English official and a very good friend of the charmless Charles Dickens. The famous English novelist, he founded the first iron industry at Port Nova in the South Arcot district, Tamil Nadu. Lo the first iron industry in Port Nova in the South Arcot district. ఓకే. అతనెవరు ఇంగ్లీష్ నావెలిస్ట్ అంట, ఇంగ్లీష్ అఫీషియల్ గుడ్ ఫ్రెండ్ ఆఫ్ చార్ల్స్ డికెన్స్. ఎప్పుడు 1830లో, ఇన్ 1830 విత్ ద పర్మిషన్ ఆఫ్ ది ఈస్ట్ ఇండియా కంపెనీ, బట్ హీ వాస్ నాట్ సో సక్సెస్ఫుల్ డ్యూ టు వేరియస్ రీజన్స్. But during the period of the colonial rule, Indian iron was used by Britishers in various forms to consolidate their economy and industries. As a result, the first iron works factory was established in Porto Novo, ఓకే, ఇన్ సౌత్ ఆర్కాట్ డిస్ట్రిక్ట్ బై జోసయ్య మార్షల్ హీత్ అంట. ఓకే, అతని పేరు జోసయ్య మార్షల్ హీత్ ఇన్ ద ఇయర్ 1830. బట్ డ్యూ టు వేరియస్ రీజన్స్ మార్షల్ హీత్ ఫెయిల్డ్ ఇన్ ప్రొడ్యూసింగ్ ఐరన్ అట్ పోర్టోనోవా. ఇన్ ద ఇయర్ 1875 the Barakar Iron Works industry was established in the Bengal Presidency. First time 1830, mal after 55 years, Bengal Presidency during the tenure of the Lord Northbrook. Then in 1881, Barakar Works was taken over by the British government. After a few years, this company was handed over to the Bengal Iron and Steel Company. Okay, after a few years, Bengal and Iron and Steel Company ki ichchesaru. Even though the production of the steel in this company has commenced from the year 1905 due to poor quality of the steel production was stopped, then Jamshedji Tata, who was considered as the father of the steel industry in India, established the Tata Iron and Steel Works at Sakchi, which was renamed as Jamshedpur. Then Sakchi, then they renamed it as Jamshedpur anta. Father of steel industry. Then from the year 1912 onwards, best quality steel production began in this industry. From the year 1912, Tata took over Tata Iron and Steel Works. So then British administrators extended all types of concessions in India to the Tata and steel industry. They also purchased steel. Britishers purchased steel from Tata to construct the railway lines in India. So this industry also provided livelihoods to some Indians. Then the jute industry. Bengal was famous for the jute production. The jute industry since pre-British period. So ropes, gunny bags, carpets, etc. were prepared by the skilled artisans of the Bengal. They enjoyed great public demand in the country and in European markets till 1830. After the advent of the British Crown in India, jute industry made a great progress. Due to the boom in the jute production after 1870, many new jute companies also came up in Bengal with the government support. 1880 lo, nearly 22 jute mills in India had employed 22 lakhs of people. By the year of 1924, the number of the jute mills had reached 64. బాగా పెరిగిందంట 1924 వరకు. సో మోర్ దెన్ 2 lakh people were employed in this industry. The government had earned huge profits, but the native jute workers, the artisans, they lost their earlier income and security. The conditions of the jute mill workers was miserable. They were paid salaries. This led to some strikes by the workers of the jute industry. See, number of jute mills ఎలా పెరుగుతూ పోయాయని. తర్వాత నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ జూట్ లూమ్స్, నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ స్పిండిల్స్, నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ ద డైలీ వేజ్ లేబర్ అండ్ వాల్యూ ఆఫ్ ద రా జూట్ exports. In the increase in British investment on Indian railways and irrigation, British political authority was strongly established in India by the year 1850. So the British authorities, they decided to invest their huge capital in building roads, railways and irrigation works in India. This was done with a single motive of strengthening their hold on India. More than this, it helped them to export the Indian raw materials to England in a speedy way. Similarly, the railway lines were well connected with remote rural village industries and ports, which helped them to sell out the British goods in the Indian markets. This British also invested capital on the construction of the irrigation projects. This helped the British to force the peasants to grow only commercial crops. Commercial crops matrame irrigation facilities provides to grow only commercial crops for exporting them to England. Thus, railways and the irrigation projects made the British powerful in India economically and administratively. So, among the irrigation works that really helped the local peasantry were the restoration of West Yamuna Canal, East Yamuna Canal, and the Ganga Canal restoration, and the construction of Dhavaleshwaram Dam over the river Godavari during 1847 to 52, and the construction of the Krishna Barrage at Vijayawada, Dhavaleshwaram Dam, Krishna Barrage at Vijayawada, construction of Dam over river Godavari, restoration of West Yamuna Canal, East Yamuna Canal, and the Ganga Canal. So all these contributed to increase in the food crop production and provided a new hope to the peasantry of this region. It also brought huge revenue to the company treasury. The efforts of Sir Arthur Cotton and some English administrators really helped the Indian peasants. Impact on industry. Before the advent of the East India Company rule over the Indian territories, India was rich with millions of self-sufficient villages. Agriculture and the rural industries, handicrafts, cottage industries, etc., provided livelihood to the villagers, and the Indian made textiles enjoyed great demand in the European markets. But after the advent of the British colonial rule, the native industries suffered seriously. The entry of the British goods into Indian markets provided a crushing blow to the native products. There was no encouragement to the native handicrafts. The village artisans like carpenters, potters, cobblers, weaver, blacksmith, etc., they lost their livelihood and income due to the entry of the British factory made products. The age old relationship which kept the village artisans, peasants, and other village men united was broken due to the colonial policies. As a result, the artisans became unemployed. Some of them entered into agriculture. It increased the pressure over agriculture. The British administrators were very much attracted with the rich natural resources of India. They decided to utilize them to suit their economic needs. They encouraged plantation crops like the tea, coffee, rubber, and established the plantation industries. In the year 1835, during the tenure of the William Bentinck, the first tea farm on experimental basis was started. Later on, it was sold to the East India Company to Assam టీ కంపెనీ. ఫ్రమ్ ఈస్ట్ ఇండియా కంపెనీ నుంచి అస్సాం టీ కంపెనీకి అమ్మేశారంట. 1835లో స్టార్ట్ చేశారు ఫస్ట్ టీ ఫామ్. దెన్ ఇన్ 1852 ది ప్రైవేట్ టీ గార్డెన్ వాస్ ఇనిషియేటెడ్ అండ్ దిస్ లెడ్ సమ్ ఆఫ్ ది private garden coming up in the country. The tea plantation has increased in a rapid way. Indian tea, due to its high quality, trade and low price, taste and low price, succeeded in overthrowing the Chinese tea domination in the British market. In the course of time, tea cultivation spread to various parts of the country. కుమావ్ అంటే నేపాల్ దగ్గర, అస్సాం, కాంగ్రా వ్యాలీ, నేపాల్, కశ్మీర్ అండ్ సిక్కిం, all these became the main centers for the tea cultivation. It provided the employment to some people, but the huge profits were gained by the Englishmen and their contractors. Along with the tea plantation industries, coffee plantation was also introduced in India by the British. From 1830 onwards, coffee cultivation was started on a large scale. Mysore, Coorg, Nilgiris, Travancore are the main centers of the coffee production during the colonial era. Rubber plantation also flourished in India during the British rule. The cultivation was introduced during the closing years of the 19th century in India. Kerala, Madras, Coorg became the important centers of the rubber cultivation also. The above plantation industries provided huge profits to the company than the farmers. There was no improvement in the financial position of the native peasants. The British administrators also tried to encourage cloth and jute industries in India. Cotton and jute are cultivated on large scale in Gujarat and Bengal. కాటన్ అండ్ జూట్ ఎక్కడ ఎక్కువ ఉంది? ఇన్ గుజరాత్ అండ్ బెంగాల్లో ఎక్కువ కల్టివేట్ చేస్తున్నారు సిన్స్ ద ప్రీ బ్రిటిష్ డేస్. ఆఫ్టర్ ద కాంక్వెస్ట్ ఆఫ్ బెంగాల్, కంపెనీ బికేమ్ ద సోల్ ఓనర్ ఆఫ్ ది వాస్ట్ ల్యాండ్స్. ద మెయిన్ objective of the British administrators in establishing the cloth mills and the jute mills is to earn more and more profits by utilizing the rich Indian cotton, jute crops and cheap labor. So impact of cloth mill industry or textile industry. So Indian weavers earned a great name due to their best quality cloth production since the ancient period. This continued even during the medieval ages, but the selfish and oppressive economic policy of the British had caused a great damage to the cloth production. Indian weavers lost their livelihood due to the entry of the British factory made textiles into the Indian market. According to the eminent historian Irfan Habib, in 1833, the British gave up the policy of grabbing the Indian products. 1833 lo, after 1833 they gave up the policy of grabbing Indian products. They started capturing the Indian markets. They stopped grabbing the products, they started capturing Indian markets. This made the final position of the British more sound than in the earlier times. The export of the Indian made cotton goods to England also declined drastically. In 1815, the total value of the cotton goods exported to England was 1 lakh 13 lakh pounds అయితే by the year 1832, in 15 years it got declined to 10 lakh pounds. Similarly 1 lakh pound 13 lakh pound నుంచి 1 lakh pounds తగ్గిపోయిందంట జస్ట్ 15-17 ఇయర్స్లో. సిమిలర్లీ ఇన్ 1815, ఓకే, in 1815 the cotton textiles and goods were worth of 26,000 euros were imported into textiles and goods worth 26,000 euros were imported into England from England. This has increased significantly to 4 lakh 26,000 into 4 lakh value by the year 1832. This was due to the free trade policy, laissez-faire free trade policy of the British government. As a result of the above developments, the Indian textile workers suffered seriously, especially the native textile workers of Surat, Dhaka and Murshidabad lost their livelihood. The British authorities established the first cotton mill at Calcutta in the year 1838 during the tenure of Lord Auckland. In 1853, a Parsi merchant named Kovashi Nanaboy Devar has established a cotton mill in Bombay. Between 1860 and 1870, the cloth industry faced serious problem in India due to the high prices of cotton on the account of the American Civil War. So, under the Crown rule, the cloth industry was in India had made a rapid progress. So, the Bombay and Ahmedabad spinning industry successfully completed with the English Chinese. They competed successfully with the English, Chinese and the Japanese mills. Okay, ఆ తర్వాత then other industries besides the above mentioned chief industries, other industries like sugar industry, paper industry, leather, cement industry also provided employment to many people. Their products enjoyed domestic and foreign markets. The sugar was exported from India to England. After 1863, India started importing sugar from Mauritius, where British planters had the sugar factory with the help of the indentured Indian laborers. అక్కడ మారిషస్లో పోయి బ్రిటిషర్స్ షుగర్ ప్లాంటేషన్స్ పెట్టి అక్కడ ఇండియన్ లేబరర్స్ని పెట్టుకొని షుగర్ ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేసి అక్కడి నుంచి మళ్ళీ ఇండియాకి ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ చేసేవాళ్ళ మారిషస్ నుంచి షుగర్ దరిద్రుడు. Paper industry also occupied an important place in the economy during the period of Lord Mayo 1869 to 72. Okay, in 1870, the first paper mill named Bali Mill was established on the bank of river Hooghly. Another two paper mills, namely Titagur paper mill in 1875 and Imperial paper mill 1872 in Kakinada. In 1894, it was established. In the beginning, these paper mills imported required raw material and wooden pulp or pulp made from sabi grass. At the end of the First World War, 1918, Indian bamboo pulp అనేది it was used. Indian bamboo pulp was used in the production of the paper by the owners of the mills. Best quality paper and paper boards were imported into the country from England, imported into India. Best paper boards, best quality paper అనేది it was imported from England అని చెప్తున్నారు. India since ancient times was known for its rich livestock population. Cleaning of the skin of the dead animals was done at the village level by the lower caste people. In the beginning, the skin of the animals was used for making shoes, chappals, bags, ropes, sacks, etc. The first government leather factory was established in 1860 in Kanpur. In Kanpur, it was established. Cement production started in India from 1904 onwards. The Portland cement production was started in Madras in 1904, but it was stopped very soon. Before the outbreak of the First World War, cement factories in India were started at Porbandar, Gujarat. 1904లో స్టార్ట్ అయితే ఫస్ట్ సిమెంట్ ఫ్యాక్టరీ అట్ పోర్ట్లాండ్ సిమెంట్ ప్రొడక్షన్ది. ఫస్ట్ వరల్డ్ వార్ 1914లో స్టార్ట్ అయింది. ఓకే, బై దెన్ దేర్ వర్ సిమెంట్ ఫ్యాక్టరీస్ అట్ పోర్బందర్ గుజరాత్, కతూరి ఇన్ మధ్యప్రదేశ్ అండ్ బుందీ ఇన్ రాజస్థాన్. ఈ 3 ప్లేసెస్లో సిమెంట్ ఫ్యాక్టరీస్ ఉన్నాయి. ఆల్ దీస్ మైనర్ ఇండస్ట్రీస్ ఆల్సో ప్రొవైడ్ లైవ్లీహుడ్ టు మెనీ లోకల్ పీపుల్. Then managing agency system during the period of the British rule in India. Managing agencies, okay, వీళ్ళ లేబర్స్ని మేనేజ్ చేసే ఏజెంట్స్. మేనేజింగ్ ఏజెంట్స్ వేర్ అపాయింటెడ్ టు ప్రమోట్ అండ్ మేనేజ్ దేర్ ఇండస్ట్రీస్. The industrial development in India became a grand success due to the effort of some of the dynamic managers. The Europeans who were rich but lacking the business management skill or initiative were ready to entrust their funds to the managing agents in whom they had great confidence. Amongst the prominent Indian managing agency houses, Tata Birla అంటాం కదా, ద టాటా సన్స్ అండ్ ద కంపెనీ అండ్ ద దాల్మియా జైన్ లిమిటెడ్ played a significant role in the growth and expansion of many industries. The managing agency system also proved very much profitable to the British investors. It ruined the native economy. So Birla Brothers, Tata Sons and Company and the Dalmia Jain Limited. All this. Okay, then the native and foreign వీళ్ళు managing agencies. Native and foreign investment. Muslim nobility was rich class during the Mughal period in India. Okay, Muslim nobility అనేవాళ్ళు rich nobles కదా, Muslim nobles, they were rich people. But after the establishment of East India Company rule over India, they suffered a lot. They were not permitted to carry on their trade and commerce. Their products were kept under the control of British. The political situation between 1700 and 1765 also dealt a big blow to the native investors and the businessmen. After the Bengal conquest of East India Company, there was no check on their trading activities. The advent of the managing agency system అనేది it proved to be a great advantage to the British investors. Due to the selfish motives of the British officials and investors, native trade and village cottage industries or handicrafts, they suffered severely. The British colonialism and their support to the capitalists, ఎవరికి సపోర్ట్ చేసేవారు, capitalists, caused great harm to the native economy. All major industries and the railways were under the control of the British. Okay, railways and all major industries కదా. సో ఇండస్ట్రియల్ డిక్లైన్ ఎలా స్టార్ట్ అయింది? ఇండస్ట్రియల్ డిక్లైన్. సో ద డైరెక్ట్ రూల్ ఆఫ్ ఈస్ట్ ఇండియా కంపెనీ అండ్ ద క్రౌన్ ఓవర్ ఇండియా, డైరెక్ట్ రూల్ ఆఫ్ దెమ్ ఓవర్ ఇండియా led to the destruction of the native industries. This created an extra pressure on the agriculture. The colonial masters have exploited the Indian natural resources to benefit their industries. They promoted plantation of industries, plantation industries. They promoted AVV plantation industries, coal industries, iron, steel, textiles and jute industries, etc. These primarily benefited the British capitalist ideas. The introduction of the modern means of transportation, that is railways and roadways, and also communication, telegraph and post, also damaged the traditional self-sufficient Indian village economy. So this led to deindustrialization or killing of the industrial potential of India. And through the protective measures to safeguard their interests. In one word, we can conclude that the land revenue policies of the British, okay, they caused huge harm to the Indian peasantry. They caused huge harm to Indian peasantry and also to the agriculture. Similarly, the industrial policy, land revenue policy okati, and then industrial policy also caused great damage to the traditional Indian handicrafts and the village economy. ఓకే, ఒకటేమో ఇండస్ట్రియల్ పాలసీ, ఇంకోటేమో ల్యాండ్ రెవెన్యూ పాలసీస్. ఇక్కడ నుంచి చూడండి, ల్యాండ్ రెవెన్యూ పాలసీస్ ఆఫ్ బ్రిటిష్ అండ్ ఇండస్ట్రియల్ పాలసీస్. ద ఫుడ్ క్రాప్స్ ద ఫుడ్ క్రాప్ ప్రోడక్ట్స్ అనేది food crops products అనేది came down drastically. There was hectic growth in the production of the commercial crops due to the heavy pressure on the peasants by the British officials and the zamindars. Thus we can conclude that the foreign rule on India between 1757 and 1947 has done irreparable damage to the Indian agriculture and industry. It only benefited the British Raj. Then anti-colonial upsurge.